Welcome to everybody who's here. We're here tonight for our Halfway There panel. Very lovely to have you all join us on a Wednesday evening. That means that we are halfway there. We're 30 days away from the deadline. And our virtual panel tonight is going to be a discussion with the past participants and award winners about the successes and challenges of completing the 60-day challenge. And we'll allow participants to ask questions and get answers about the process of the Digi60 Filmmakers Festival. We'd like to thank our funders, the City of Ottawa and the ACFO Ottawa Bilingual Grant. And before we get started, I just want to send out a couple of housekeeping reminders. This panel is going to be held entirely in English. As you will notice, we are in meeting mode. So this will allow for participants to ask questions at the end of the discussion. But until then, to maximize the quality of the stream, we ask that you please turn off your video and your audio. And then we also ask that you go to the top right hand of the Zoom screen, select view, and then select hide non-video participants. You can also select speaker view if you would prefer to have one person on the screen at a time. But if you if you select the gallery view, you'll be able to see all 5 speakers throughout the evening. So, and finally, before I introduce the panelists and our host, I'd like to acknowledge that though we're meeting virtually, the land that Digi60 works on and hosts our festival is the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. We're always very grateful to be able to create and work on this land and call for artists and filmmakers to walk a path of reconciliation by contacting your MP to tell them to address and act on the remaining 94 calls for truth and reconciliation. And also, if you're feeling like it, reach out to an Algonquin elder or knowledge keeper and see how you can work in some of that work into your own artist work or your films that you're working on. So before we get started, I want to introduce Kevin. Kevin is the president of Digi60. He's been at the helm of Digi60 since 2009, growing the festival from a handful of participants to many handfuls and adding professional development, growing partnerships. He's worked with several television media outlets in the Ottawa area and is a live event videographer for the Ottawa Senators, Ottawa Red Blacks, Ottawa 67s. He's also an educator at Algonquin College, teaching the next generation of film and media professionals. So I'm going to pass it to Kevin, and he will introduce our panelists for tonight.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Emily. That guy sounds impressive, I got to say. Yeah. It really is exciting to be here. Last year was the first year we did this. And I think it was pretty helpful. And even like some of the people who are participating today actually were in on this last year and have been told to say that they thought it was very helpful and have been very agreeable to that. So, and it's great. Like Digitime is always a pretty special time of year. You sort of feel the energy coming with us as a group, getting the festival ready, getting ready for the screenings and stuff like that. It's great. We know that there's these little hives of filmmakers running around the city, hopefully by now, shooting their films and getting stuff ready for a pretty special weekend and a great weekend that Emily and the group have planned as well. So really looking forward to it. Let's see. I have to say, what do I say? Please put some questions, or please put questions that you have in the chat box, and we will get to them at the end. We will also open up the floor for questions and answers near the end, at which time you'll be invited to turn on your mic and video if you want to. But until then, please, let's just keep the questions and comments in the chat box. We'll go through it in sort of a I'm in charge kind of way, I guess. And then at the end, we'll throw it open and move into questions that you might have. But yeah, if you do have comments too that are sort of prescient, is that the right word? Prescient to what we're talking about at the time, feel free to throw them into the chat box. Emily's going to be typing some stuff in, and I might notice your question, and if we can pop it in at an appropriate time, that would also be great. So feel free to try to do that at least. So I'm going to introduce the panelists. We're going to go around the room and introduce the panelists. Last year, I mispronounced somebody's name. I can't remember whose it was. And I think that I tried really hard to make sure that I knew how to pronounce their name beforehand. And then the way that I knew I shouldn't pronounce it was the way I ended up pronouncing it the entire time. So this has happened again this year. We have gone through, and I'm sure that I know how to pronounce everybody's name. But if I pronounce it wrong, we'll see what happens. All right. So we'll start with Hassib Hani. Nice. Yeah, I know I got that right. Yeah. Who gave us last year our best film and our best technical winner for the film Justice. Great film. Like, just a great film. Like, it was so good and so great to see on the big screen. It was really, really great. Um, Ashley Gorman and Stephen Gagné, who won Best Director and for their film Momentary Lapse, which is, again, another good film. I rewatched them this week too, and I don't know if I had really watched it through the credits, like right to the end before. And now I realized I should have, because yeah, there's some cool stuff in the credits even. Yeah, that was very cool. And then Mikey Tachuk, yeah, it's pretty close. Whose film Impulse Control won Best Acting, and yeah, great characters, and a film that really needed good actors to pull it off, and you've got some amazing people in there. Yeah, it was a really solid film, and three very different films. Like, there was comedy, there was death, more death than comedy, to be honest. But yeah, it was just such a nice wide range of films. It was really a solid year, really a solid year. So I am going to ask some questions. Some will probably be more relevant to some people than others, but I'll try and get everybody involved in answering each of the questions. And it's more of a conversation though as well. So if you feel like branching off into some other topic, totally feel free. But we'll start with our first question. So just to tell us a bit about your film and how you came up with the concept. Did you come into the festival with the idea or a basic idea that you sort of fit the catch into, or did you have to adapt your theme, or did you sort of come up with the idea afterwards? Like, once you got the catch, you say, I'm coming in as a blank slate and I'll figure it out once I hear the catch. And so what was the process of developing that like? And I noticed, well, we'll start with Hassib, because Hassib, you wrote and directed yours. So it was from the beginning your idea. So what was that process like for you? Did you come in with an idea, or was it more of a, here's the catch and now I have an idea?
To be honest, I had the idea first. I thought about how I can make a film that, honored one of my friends who passed away. And so I think it corresponded really well with the theme overall. So I just went ahead and then shot it, I guess, according to the theme. So
now, when you wrote it, like, you wrote that, or did you have a people you were bouncing things off of, or was that your script?
I bounce everything off my wife.
Oh,
yeah, she really helps me weed out all of the perhaps tackiness or unnecessary aspects of a film. And so she's very supportive, and I think she's probably the primary person I consult with when I'm making films.
Awesome. Yeah. That's great to have. All right. So Stephen and Ashley, I know we had talked a little bit beforehand about how Mark Templin had been involved as well. So did you have an idea, or was it something you got it and then sat down with Mark? Or
well, so we actually had signed up to participate the year before when the theme was power. And we attended the virtual release for that. And then Ashley and I went on a long walk, started bouncing ideas off of each other, and figured, I've got this idea for a film. Let's do something where, you're playing with the idea of power. Somebody has power over someone else. And then really the characters have power over the audience. And I couldn't write that script. I was writing. I usually write most of our films. It just wasn't coming out. It wasn't working at all for me. So when we went into last year, I was talking with Ashley beforehand and said, well, let's see if it fits. Let's see if the thing we had for power fits under the theme. We don't know what the theme is going to be yet. And as soon as they announced the theme was escape, Ashley was on the other side of the room. I texted her, "Oh, this is perfect. We're going to do this film, and we're going to find Mark. Don't let Mark leave without one of the two of us talking to him. We've seen him pitch a million times. We wanted to work with him, and it just ended up being a perfect fit. That everything that I was struggling with and everything I was struggling to write with in this film, Mark was able to understand what I wanted, and worked incredibly fast to get everything that I couldn't on the page, which then gave me the freedom to go back and edit the draft into the film I wanted it to be. So it was, we weren't planning on unnecessarily doing this film, but it was just a perfect fit
right.
for the theme.
Yeah, and that's cool too, because one thing when we did introduce the pitching years ago was the thought that even if the idea that the person pitching wasn't exactly what you wanted, it might be a person where you said, their personality seems to mesh with what we want to do, or the type of thing we want to do, and that you're able to work with them after. And that's great to hear that happened there. All right. And Mikey, You're right. It was Nikki Richards.
Correct. Yeah. So before the festival, it was just strictly a concept. I was just making breakfast one day and thought, wouldn't it be funny if that little voice in your head made you do all the terrible things it thinks of? And then I kind of forgot about it. And it wasn't until Digi60, once we heard the theme, that I sat down with my fiance, Sarah Marks, and one of my childhood best friends, Nikki Richards, who's a writer. And we just sat down there and we created a story around a concept. And so that was a really interesting approach because we could incorporate the theme of the festival into the story and expand it from just a funny idea to an actual script and a story.
Yeah. It had such a consistent voice through it too. It was so good. Yeah, really, really nicely done. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Question 2. Did you know what you were in for when you signed up for the 60-day challenge? Well, how many of you, for you, was this the first time? So Mikey, Hassib, was it the challenge you expected? We'll start with Mikey.
Well, I've done some short films in the past, but definitely not under a time constraint like this. So that was certainly the hardest part. And no, it was not what I was expected. It was certainly a lot more work than I thought. And it was weekly meetings and, okay, we got to get on top of it. We really got to make sure we're meeting this deadline. And so the pressure was also helpful to keep us moving along, keep the creative juices flowing. So wasn't what I expected, but it was better than I expected.
And Hassib?
Honestly, it went by pretty smoothly. I think that's the easiest way to answer that question.
Did you have a filmmaking background before that?
I had acted in a lot of films, and I had shot another short film about a year prior to that. So that was basically the experience I had.
So not a vast experience.
Probably not, yeah.
Did you find 60 days tight though, or was it?
No.
Exactly.
I find it's a very, very reasonable amount of time to shoot a film. So, yeah.
It is pretty generous, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, and we actually talked about this beforehand. Had any of you not shot your film by this point last year? And I know Stephen and Ashley, you said you had you shot anything?
So I mean, to answer the question of did we know what we were in for, I think this is a question best directed at Ashley. Things happened that she didn't plan for that pushed the shoot back.
Yeah, we had a lot of. This wasn't our first Digi60, so we kind of knew what we were going in for. But we had so many hiccups happen that it kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And then we're like, okay, we really absolutely cannot push anymore. And I think we had filmed something around, I think it was like November 12th or something like that ish. It was like mid-November, and deadline was like just before December. So we were cutting it pretty close.
We lost our lead actress, and we spent some time trying to recast and couldn't. And I kept saying, Ashley, you could do this. And eventually she ended up co-directing and starring in the film, which we lost some time on, but I think it worked out in the end.
Yeah. So originally our actress, we had pushed because of our main actress. She was working on something else for another Digi project. So the weekend that we wanted, we couldn't because we were really set on that actress. And so because she was already filming something a different weekend, we're like, okay, let's push ours another time so that we could make sure that we fit her in. And then 4 days before filming, she got COVID. So we're like, oh my God. So yeah, I spent about 2.5 days trying to find a new actress. And then Steven was kind of like, okay, you're going to have to go for it. He gave me the push into it. I was like, okay. So I ended up having like half a day to learn the script on top of having to do everything else. I mean, I had an idea of the script because we were working on it.
Right.
But I didn't memorize it. Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
But it does give hope. So if anyone's watching who hasn't shot it yet, it's
absolutely.
Yeah.
What about Mikey? Mikey, had you shot by now?
No. So when I watched the panel last year, I was shooting that weekend. So it was super helpful because I got a bunch of information and tips to learn going into the shoot. But it's not too late. If you haven't shot yet, it just means you had a really good pre-production, we hope. So you're all good.
Yeah. So ideally, though, like if you could break up your 60 days the way you wanted to, how would you do it?
Honestly, I don't really regret the way we did it. I was pretty confident in the time we had to edit, so I knew I was leaving enough time on the back end. And for our film in particular, pre-production was really important. I really wanted to nail that. So I thought we were good being generous, leaving more pre-production time than time on the back end. But I'm sure others may disagree with that.
I didn't want to. I wanted to be shooting in October, but losing the actress and having to push things back kind of forced us to do things we wouldn't have done before, like a full shot list. And in that shot list, having where the inserts were going to go, getting a score written for the film. The last song is an original song sung by the DP on the film, and we suddenly wound up with all this stuff that we suddenly had time to do. So right. I think, Ashley would probably kill me to say this, but I think even though it was stressful to be shooting that late, I'm glad we did. Right. I'm glad we waited.
No, I agree. Because the previous years for the Digi60, we were so focused on the post-production and we're like, we want a lot of time to edit. We want to edit. And then we kind of rushed the pre-production because we were so focused on, we need so much time for the editing because that's what's going to take a long time, that when we got to the editing process, we were like, oh, we should have done that. Yeah. We didn't do that and we should have. We're missing this. Why didn't we think of that? Whereas because we were forced to shoot later, we actually had more time and we're like, okay, so this is our shoot date. So let's make sure we have everything set up before we get to that, because we don't have time to fix it in post anymore.
Yeah. Hassib, do you remember what date you shot on?
I think it was November 5th.
November 5th, yeah. So after today.
Yeah, it was basically a few days right after. And I'll say that I think that the first month you should really dedicate to just thinking about your film, really like exploring all the avenues of how you're going to shoot it, what it's going to look like, what the actors are going to be like. Is the story captivating enough for you? So, because I find sometimes we have an idea and we're kind of like married to that idea. And then if you ask the same person about 3 months later, you'd be like, wow, that was such a terrible idea I had at that time. And so I think just taking that time to reflect is very valuable. And then, upping up the pace to actually start shooting and organizing for the film. I think that's very, very important to organize your time that way.
Yeah. And especially for your film where you did, it was all shot in one night.
Yeah.
And so you had to get it. You had to get it. So you had to have everything organized, things like that gas station and like just making sure that you had control over all the situations that you were.
I'll mention the gas station that we ended up shooting at was literally a last minute, 30 minutes into filming. Because the other gas station that we went to was a live location and it was just extremely busy.
Right.
And we just were unlucky because it's one of the cheapest gas stations. And so I went to the other gas station right down the street, and the clerk that was working there, my brother's shop is right across the street from that gas station. So I went in there. I said, hey, I think I know the owner. Can you give me his number? So I just called him. He's like, yeah, have fun. And then I was like, okay. And then that guy ended up acting in the film as well.
That was the clerk.
As the clerk, yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So it was basically last minute. A lot of times I feel like I just got lucky shooting that film with the timing and pacing and the locations and everything.
Yeah. Oh, and you wouldn't know it. It looks so smooth. It looks like you had total control of the whole situation. Yeah.
And that's maybe a lesson. Just be free. Just let it happen. Just shoot the film, and if you don't like it at the end of the day, just don't publish it. It's fine. It's an experience. You could try it. You could see what it looks like. But in just this scenario, I guess a lot of the pieces fell together for me and for the team.
Cool. Yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool. So let's see. When you're transferring your idea from script to screen, so what you wrote versus what you ended up being able to shoot and put on screen, were there elements that you had to let go of? And how did you handle that kind of change?
So an interesting aspect of the film is I only really gave instructions to the actors, and I really wanted them to sort of exercise their way of how that character would act in that moment. So a lot of it was their personal dialogue, and especially my main actor, Mishan, who came up with like phenomenal dialogue that I couldn't even have written.
Yeah.
And so he was very, I guess he was a kind of charismatic. He's a charismatic gangster in the film. So, and the first maybe 3 minutes of the film, I'm not even there. So I'm not even able to observe what's happening. So I gave a lot of confidence to the people, and I think maybe it's another tip. Sometimes we try to control the actors too much, control everything that they're saying, everything that they're doing. But perhaps the way they're doing it, I'm not saying it's necessarily better, but it's maybe more organic. And so by allowing them to actually do things, I had told, oh man, the first actress, she asked me, oh, how do I act like a junkie? So I don't know, go to King Edward. So so it's so I think that a lot of people will take, especially when they want to work on these films, they'll like take a personal investment in it, and they'll try their best to bring forward something and assist you in the project.
Brilliant, brilliant, yeah. And I know, just a quick aside, like dealing with script writing programs, and then I help some students at Algonquin with some script writing and stuff. Just how many times people want to put a parenthetical describing how somebody says something, and it's like, don't, like, let the actor make that decision. Like, have the confidence in your performers to do that. So yeah, it's a really, I think it's a very solid point. And again, you can say, well, let's try it this way, and then let's try it this way, and then look at it after, and probably 9 times out of 10, like you say, the organic way is the one where you're going to go, oh, that's how this should have been done. Yeah.
Yeah, it was exactly the same thing for us. When I write a script, I write it in my own voice because that's the only voice that's in my head. But doing those table reads, or like you said, Kevin, just saying, well, but let's try it your way. Digital film doesn't use up tons and tons of film as you go, so I've got space on the card. Let's do another take. We've got time in this, and allow for it. And it almost always ends up being, at this point, the actors know their characters. They have their own vision of them, and it's usually better than mine as the director. And sort of let them go with it. We did give up a few things in our film too. I had more than one location in this. I had many locations in the original story. And in realizing, we're kind of poor filmmakers, so we don't have the money to rent a police station and a bar and all of these things. So how do we make this work? Well, what if you just move the whole thing into the bar? And then it got so much more in it, so much more. It ended up, I think, being honestly better than if we tried to make a fake police room somewhere. So they're kind of the budgetary restrictions and the time restrictions of trying to move from place to place. I think what we gave up made it a better film than if I'd fought and tried to keep those things in it.
Exactly. Brilliant. But you did get an ambulance.
We did get an ambulance, and that was a last minute Hail Mary.
Well, it wasn't just a last minute. I had planned for it way beforehand. I had spoken to the municipality. I couldn't get anything with the city of Ottawa, so we had to reach out to the Prescott Russell the Prescott Russell municipality. I was able to manage to work being able to borrow one of their ambulances and then trying to organize what their schedule would allow, because they were a lot smaller than the city of Ottawa, with the actor's schedule, who one of our main actors was also doing theater, and they end up switching a rehearsal on him, so he couldn't go. And then the paramedic that we were going to have help us with the ambulance ended up having to be on shift that night. So we were supposed to drive all the way out to Plantagenet, which is like past Orleans, Rockland, and try to bring all of our actors out there. And I was like, you know what, this is getting a little out of hand. We had to go there. It was like 11 in the evening, and I was like, we need to figure something else out. And thankfully, Steve Boisvert was able to we called in a favor saying, hey, we're kind of in a pinch right now. Is there anything you can help out? And that's something that like the Ottawa film industry is very, very helpful for you. Like if you reach out and ask somebody for help, they know that, local filmmakers and just being editors, people starting into it, and they're more than willing to help. And he was able to save us. And originally we were supposed to have like the gurney in there and all the stuff and 2 paramedics kind of helping out. And again, that all fell through like the night before, and we were scrambling, trying to get everything. And Steve was like, listen, I still have an ambulance in my warehouse, but all of the gear in it is rented out for another film. And then we made it work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's so much of what being a filmmaker is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Mikey? Was there stuff that you had to leave out?
Well, being flexible with our script was actually a big part of the pre-production strategy. So just to put things into perspective, we had 11 locations. Over 75% of the film was outdoor dependent, and the entire film was daylight dependent. So a lot of margin for error could happen there. So we kind of took the approach of this expression I love, anticipate the BS, and you can fill in BS on your own, which is take a look at your script, and every moment where something's out of your control that could go wrong, start thinking about, okay, if it's raining, where can we change this scene? Okay, if we can't get this location, what can we do instead? And so that was a big part of the pre-production strategy, where we were ambitious, but we had a backup for almost every element of the scene, where if we had to, kill a baby, ditch part of the script that we don't want, right, we would actually have a backup that could help us with our timing or get us to that finish line. And that was a big help for us.
Excellent. Yeah. And so, like I say, I think some people sometimes they panic a little when things don't go the way they want. And sometimes that can turn out to be, like, try to steer that towards a positive. That's the way you have to. And I believe BS is a best scenario. That's what it is.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. Oh, yeah. This is a good question. Like Digi60 has been very, has always stressed the fact that you guys own your films. Like, we screen them, but you can do whatever you want with them after. Did any of you go in with the thought of what you might do with this film after, in terms of going into other film festivals or anything like that? Or was your focus exclusively on getting a film done for Digi60? Hassib?
I think I just had created it for Digi60. I wanted to do something with the local community. So
yeah.
For me, this was kind of a cathartic thing, where we'd spent, through the pandemic, we didn't make any films, and I've been wanting to tell a story. And the year before, I'd really struggled to tell a story. So for this one, for me, I was really driven to just get something on the screen, and never really thought, we've been saying for previous films that we've made, oh, this is going to do a festival run, so we're going to make this and then save it, and we've never done that. So for this one, it was just let's see if we can still do this. Let's see if we still got it. And Digi was the perfect place for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was also the first time we did a film since COVID hit, and so we hadn't done a short film in a couple of years and all that stuff. So it was just, okay, let's get back into this and let's just do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, I first attended Digi60 in 2019 with a group of friends, and we watched all the films. We had a great night, and we said, you know what, we should do this. We should do this sometime. And so that's what we did. The crew was all childhood friends. None of them had film experience. So I put them in roles that I thought they'd be good in. And so it was strictly for the festival. But then, of course, we were surprised when CBC reached out earlier this year and I got the rights for the film. So it was just a bonus. But going into it, it was strictly just a group of friends having fun.
Excellent. Yeah, that's cool. But so great. Thank you all very much for focusing on Digi60. But I think we just want to make sure that everyone understands these are your films. You get to do with what you want with them after. We don't have any exclusivity to them or anything like that. We're just the vessel to get you to make these types of things. We do have a question in the chat, and talking about crew. Yeah. Like, how did you decide on the size of your crew, and what roles do you think are critical? Like, what would be sort of the minimum you need to have in a crew? Hassib?
I try to keep my crew as small as possible. Under 3 people, typically. So yeah, the most important, obviously, camera and sound. I'm not crazy about lighting. I'm not, some other directors are, but camera and sound is very important to me.
Yeah, and you had a very natural feel to your film, so lighting would almost make it feel fake if you had added lighting.
Yeah, I think that's basically the compromise that I would have made and plus with the movement, it was virtually impossible.
Exactly.
Even the lighting in the car, on the take that we had selected, we had the light on in the car every single time except for that one take, which I liked the most, and maybe I liked it the most because it was kind of dark and mysterious.
Yeah, it felt real. Yeah. Stephen and Ashley?
So and I think in our case, Ashley and I, we were classmates together at Algonquin, and we'd been working together on a lot of things, and kind of brought in 1 or 2 other people from a small crew standpoint. But we've been gradually expanding the crew because it's getting tiring to do everything. When I started making films when I was really young, I thought I had to be everything. I have to be the director, the sound guy. To answer the question of what roles are critical, well, you need someone in front of the camera and somebody behind it. Really, that's what's critical to have a film, or if you're the person doing both. But we've been trying to grow that and letting people with talent bring their talent to it, and trusting that, if you have somebody who is running your sound, you don't have to go over after every take and say, I want to hear it. Trust that it's going to be there. So we've been growing the crew. We're poor. We can't afford to pay people. So really, it's the people who are volunteers who are happy to help with this. And I think in many cases, it's the budget that dictates how big the crew can be. If I've got money, I like to pay a makeup artist. I want to pay somebody to really think about the lighting, and kind of the opposite for us. As even our film, we lit it the way we did because we didn't want it to seem real. So in this case, we wanted to feel like she's clearly lying. Something's wrong here. So to have somebody who was able to do that and think about what's going on the camera really kind of dictated that. But we tend to stay small just out of necessity.
Yeah, and you also had makeup.
We had makeup, yeah. We had makeup. Yeah, there was a fight in our film, so we had a stunt coordinator who happened to be the person getting beaten up, who was a wrestler who we knew. He could say, "This is a safe place to hit me. This is a safe place for me to go down." And anytime we do have a fight in the film, we do bring in somebody who does know that. There are things we don't want to take chances with. Yeah. And then my wife has always been in the background taking care of feeding us and telling us, because Ashley, Ryan, and myself, when we're in this 100%, saying you're still human, you need to eat, put the camera down, time to take a break.
Right.
And I think sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but in terms just even of continuity, of what you looked like, Ashley, did you have to keep looking in the mirror and making sure, the blood was here, it was.
There's a few times where we had to redo the blood, and because of how we had to shoot it, it wasn't necessarily in chronological order. There were a few parts that, again, because of the timing and locations, we had to quickly go shoot elsewhere and then come back. So we tried our best to make it look, but so we had to splash blood in my face, and we're like, okay, it's not falling the right spot. So we had to wipe it down, and then we were trying to use something, and it was just, so we did have a makeup person on site. I find also if we have our crew, like our critical crew, which is me, Steven, and Ryan, we work very well together. And Steven and I were in school together. We're very ambitious people, and like Steve said, we always we're kind of always wanting to do it ourselves. But over the last little bit, like, we're exhausted. We're doing everything. Like, every possible role is what we're doing. And we're also kind of like opening it up to people who want to learn, because we've been able to do a lot of this, and we went to school for it. So we have a little bit more knowledge than somebody who wants to get into it and doesn't have the opportunity to go to school. So a lot of times we'll take on set PAs, which really help us out. And it also kind of helps them out to start learning. And then again, with sound and stuff like that, it is an important part. And we have somebody who was in school and wanting to learn sound. So like, you know what, we'll bring you on. We don't have a specific sound person. So it was always kind of reaching out to people saying, hey, is there anybody who wants to volunteer on this, who wants to learn, who wants to help us out? We do have like our crucial crew, but we always try to expand and help people out, and also have people help us out. But yeah.
And Mikey, your group?
Yeah, for sure. I think that like, I'm the type of guy who would just love to do everything. I want to shoot it, I want to edit it, I want to direct it, but you have to kind of understand that the more roles you take on, the more hats you wear, your attention is going to be divided, right? And inevitably, some areas will have a negative, suffer negatively because of that. So we had a crew, I think, of about 6 or 7 key roles, right? Sound, camera, locations, art director. And, it just feels so good when I'm behind camera and someone at the monitor says, oh, she has a hair out of place. I didn't even notice because I'm looking at this, the street light in the background, right? Just having those extra set of eyes to pick out those details and help spread your attention across a crew, so it's not all in your head the whole time. It's immensely helpful.
Yeah. And I did notice in your credits, you had donors. What was that?
Yeah. So, I mean, What we did is, for fun, during the month of October, during our pre-production, we did a little bit of like old school fundraising. We're like, it's a short film, why not? So we did a 50-50 raffle that we just hosted on social media, got everyone to share and e-transfer their amounts, right? Then we did a little gift basket based off of stuff that people, friends and family donated to the gift basket. So don't be afraid to get out there and do some good old-fashioned fundraising too. It might be a little late now, but it's never too late, and that can help you a lot in your film in terms of your production costs.
Yeah, thinking outside the box, very much. Yeah, that's very cool. Did any of you not edit your film? Did you have someone else edit your films, or Hassib, did you edit yours?
My film didn't require much edit.
Tell me there was at least one edit. Was there?
There was well, syncing the audio, I guess, but there was the end of Justice. For those who haven't watched it, I won't spoil it. But I had taken an audio from another take that I thought sounded much better, but you wouldn't have known just because the person's back was turned as
he was running to the car. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Did you do much color correction or anything on that though?
Yeah, just I don't like oversaturated. I find it makes it look I guess less natural. I just like maybe like a cooler tone when it comes to editing. And John did the color correction because he loves doing that. So.
Brilliant. Yeah. And who edited yours, Stephen and Ashley?
I don't actually like editing. I realized that I like post-production and I like production, but I like pre-production. I like production. I hate post-production. So Ryan, who was the DOP, also did a lot of the editing. But Ashley and I were definitely involved in the process.
Mm-hmm. And so would you say like getting someone, if you don't love editing, finding an editor would also be a critical crew member possibly?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of things, both as a photographer and a filmmaker, that I shot that are sitting on cards waiting for somebody to edit them. And I think if we hadn't found somebody who really loves editing and really loves the editing process, I don't think I'd ever have made a film.
Yeah. And just to expand off that, I mean, think about having an outside perspective from someone who wasn't on set, who's looking at this footage for the first time, and they're putting it together based off of what they're seeing. You may, as a director, see something in their edit like, wow, I didn't even think of that, or that cuts much better than I thought it would. So it's a great opportunity to split the workload and do that.
Exactly. And to that point too, so our director of photography is our editor. So when Ashley and I are directing, we're thinking about the actors need to do this, but Ryan's thinking while shooting it, I need this in the edit. I need this coverage. I don't have this angle. Can you give me this angle? So then, all right, let's shoot this thing again. So when he gets to the edit, he knows where all the shots are. He knows he shot them, and he remembers, oh yeah, I think I like the second one better. What do you guys think of the second one on this?
Yeah, and that's so true. Like in digital video, where you're just importing a clip. Like Walter Murch, I remember hearing him talk about like when he would bring film in, he would watch every frame as it was coming in because it was filmed. But now when you bring in a digital video film, even as you're fast forwarding through it, you're not seeing every frame anymore. You're just seeing the frames and stuff like that. So yeah, it can be really useful to know all the content, or have your editor do all the content. Yeah, for sure.
Well, for us too, all three of us we sat down and watched everything together and kind of pinpointed that take was better. We preferred this, and that angle kind of looks better. It adds to the mystery, or that one looks, so we kind of went through it and then pieced it together, got together again, kind of went through it again, saying, no, actually, I think this one fits better, kind of move things around. So yeah, it depends on how much you want to be involved in it and how much work you want to put into it, or if you want to hand it off to somebody else. Yeah.
And I feel terrible. Like one part of the crew we haven't even talked about is actors. How did you come up with your actors? Did you have your people already, or did you have auditions?
A little bit of both. So we do hold auditions. For this one specifically, Stephen, we had an idea of who we wanted to play. We worked with this actress before. So we had done a few other film festivals, a few other projects within school that we did short films with, our short series. And we had worked with them before, so we already had an idea of who we wanted to cast for the two main actors. And then kind of held auditions or people who were wanting to do a little bit of background or getting into acting. But But yeah, for the previous ones, we held auditions for all the roles and stuff like that. For this one specifically, we went in knowing, kind of adapting the roles to these two actors because we knew we wanted to work with them.
Yeah. Hassib?
For me, I really wanted Mishal to be in the film because I know him personally, and I felt like naturally he would just be himself.
Has he done acting before? Because it was awesome.
No, it was actually very difficult to work with right before we started filming. And then in the end, he's like, "Oh, I actually love this. I can't wait to do it again." So I don't think people really understand what it's like being on set and having to do all these different takes. So yeah, try to work, I would say, with more experienced actors, people who are familiar with how a set works. But if there's somebody that you really, really like and you really believe is going to fit a role, then try your best to get them on board and to act. I acted in the film as well, the same way Ashley did. But I think my rationale for acting is because I wanted to use my character to control the timing. Because if I allowed another, because I would like nudge him like underneath, okay, it's time to start driving your car. So and also because of like how am I going to direct and be behind? It was like very awkward and to move around and things like that. So yeah, I try to find like one very captivating actor or individual that you know in your life, like a very individual, interesting look or way of talking or age, and that will probably do half of the work for you. I think having like if you guys saw Mishal on camera, it just looked like this is him. This is basically he's a car dealer. So he kind of has this personality, and now you're telling him, okay, now you're doing drugs this time. So it kind of worked out.
Yeah, and he was magnetic. Yeah, it's so good. I'm shocked, to be honest, to hear that he hadn't had acting experience.
Oh no, nothing.
That's the director, though. That's the director.
Maybe no.
And Mikey, where did you find your cast?
Yeah, so we held online auditions. We had over 40 applicants, which was pretty awesome. So I sat down with myself, my co-director, and my fiance Sarah, as well as the writer Nikki, and we just took one night and we watched all of the self-tapes. We made notes, we rewatched them, and we very carefully kind of whittled it down to our final two, who Jasmine Massey, she's a Digi60 veteran. She's been acting in films here for years, and she was fantastic. And Emily O'Kane, who is it was her first time in a short film. She had done lots of theater, but had never done short film, but her self-tape was just so captivating. We knew right away that this is it. So it was a fun process for sure. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it's so cool because like now that you say that, I was like, okay, you knew these two people and you wrote the characters based on them, but it was the exact opposite. You found the characters that fit. Yeah, that's very cool. Good.
Cool.
And I really liked Mikey's the way he casted them because they're so opposite.
Yes,
and that's what I actually loved about his film. As I was watching it, I said, like I told you, like sometimes the characters would just have to work for you, and it's so just captivating to watch them both, these two different profiles, completely be one on camera. I thought that was very brilliant in this film.
Thank you, man.
Great chemistry, eh? Yeah, it was really, good. Oh my gosh, 7:48. Okay, so we got to move on. When it comes to legal matters, were there any music, getting to use music, deal memos, agreements with actors that popped up while you were doing this film?
Oh yeah. We knew we wanted an original song, and Ryan had a good friend who wrote a song for us, but something that popped up this time that had never really been, should have been, but had never really been on our radar before was needing insurance for so many things. For the 10 seconds of ambulance. Yeah, for the 10 seconds of ambulance at the beginning of the film, we needed a $5 million rider. Wow. So kind of these little things that we'd always thought we're not big enough to need this yet, that suddenly started popping up on this. And very, very fortunately, Digi had put out a piece about 6 months before saying, if you need insurance, go to front row. And they were phenomenal. And it was something that we had never considered would be a thing until it suddenly became real the day before.
Nice.
The day before, yeah.
Hassib, did you have any things come up?
So the song in my film is also an original song from a local artist. That was just the guy Michelle told me I have a friend who makes music. You want to put a song? I said, yeah, sure. But on that point, I don't like score in my film for some reason. I don't like I don't listen to much music. It's weird. Anyways, in general, I don't like score in my film, so I knew I would have any issues there. But when they suggested the song, I said, yeah, it's a very fitting song.
Yeah.
I didn't have insurance. I think it wasn't necessary in the way I did it. But I recommend you definitely do get it. It's not expensive, and I just anyways, it's not expensive, and it's sometimes, especially if you're in locations where you're not that close with the owners, it could become problematic.
Yeah, yeah. Like even thing like using a weapon. Was there any issues with that? Was there an actually visible gun when he came over? Like, could we see the gun?
I don't know if you could see it. You could see him holding it as he's approaching.
Yeah.
But
Are we going to say pineapple at this point?
It was a plastic gun, but I'll tell you a funny story. Is that we would do the shots, right? And sometimes, like maybe 2 out of the 13 takes, no, maybe 3 out of the 13 takes that we did, people were filling up gas. And I would tell them as the character went inside, I'll tell them, we're shooting a film, just don't be alarmed. This guy's about to come out with a gun. It's fake. And it's funny because they would come out and they would shoot me, but then people would just like stand around. Like, like if you heard a gunshot, you'd run. So people would just be standing there as gunshots, like a fake gunshot was going off.
Just another day.
And so that's when we'd have to cut. We have to go back and reshoot again.
Oh, and that's the killer. With the killer, the problem, yeah, because that's at the end of your film, and in a one shot, that means starting all over again. Yeah, yeah.
And it got better. It just got better and better. And that's maybe a good lesson too, is that a lot of people are concerned about, like, oh, why do we do so many takes? I think there's a limit to how many takes you're doing, but you'll notice that every single time, gradually, it'll get better. And it's usually the last 2 or 3 takes will usually be the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a similar experience to Hassib's when we shot the opening for a film outside City Hall. And we walked over from Live on Elgin where we shot the film with Ashley covered in blood, 2 guys with a camera. And at the end of the film, I wrap a coat around her, which looked like I was kidnapping this poor lady who's covered in blood. And parents were walking by with their strollers, kind of hiding their kids from what it was that we were seeing. So there were a whole lot of shots going, oh, there's concerned bystanders. Stop. All right, go ahead, walk. It's okay. She's good. It's a film. We're filmmakers. Ashley, tell them we're filmmakers, please. Yeah, we had a similar experience with that.
And even in the hallway, because we had gone. So once I kill the guy, I come out with the weapon, and we run out of the washroom, and we end up cutting it and not using it because it just didn't look good. But in the shot, we swing open the door to the bar where we were filming and didn't realize it connected to the restaurant downstairs. So here I come out chasing somebody with a weapon in my hand covered in blood. And this poor lady comes in, walks out, and she like face open, like, oh my God, as she's going to the washroom because they were sharing the washroom. And I had to like, it's okay. We're just filming in there. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. But it was definitely had to warn people that everything was good.
Oh man! All right, so just to cover Digi60s, bud, I will say to all filmmakers, if you're using a weapon in your there's a lot of rules that you should be following.
Yeah.
You should contact the film office, make sure that you're following everything you should. Pineapple. That's all I'm going to say. Mikey, you actually had your film on CBC. Was there certain hoops you had to jump through based on that?
Definitely. So we filmed in a small town, right? So a lot of
in
Kemptville, correct?
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
So a lot of our permissions were a lot of verbal. Oh yeah, go for it. A lot of casual on the email. You have our permission. That's fine. But then when it came time for CBC earlier this year, they started asking for a lot of documents, and there was a lot of backtracking. We were going back and getting things after the fact, which I do not recommend. Definitely take your time and get those forms signed, actor release forms, location releases. If you have a separate writer with your project, them signing their writer rights away to the film, right? Or if you're doing a revenue split, figuring that out ahead of time. These things you don't think about because you're like, oh, it's a fun, film festival, but you never know how far your film might go. So you're definitely better to have your bases covered in your pre-production, get your paperwork signed, and you'll be in good shape.
And CBC was pretty much gave you a checklist of things you required with them.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So they a lot of things I just mentioned, they had asked for us, and we had to kind of go back after the fact and be like, hey, I know you said we could film in your park, but now could we please get you writing this down because we need to show it. So definitely take your time and get the proper paperwork done.
And even just for the actors, like we do it all the time just to cover, even if we're just submitting for Digi60, you never know if one of the actors decides, you know what, I changed my mind. I really don't want you to show this. And then you don't get to enter the film festival or you don't get to submit. So we always get everything in writing. Better to be safe than sorry. You're agreeing to help us out. We don't want you to back out the day before and then go, no, I didn't agree to this. I don't want you to show it anymore. Have it in writing. It's better to have it.
Yeah. And it's sort of demonstrating that you know how to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
I can't remember what year it was. There was someone who was talking about it. And they were saying, this is great. You've made a great Digi60 film. So what you've shown me is that if you have no money, you can make a film. Now I give you $100,000. You haven't proven that you know what to do with that $100,000. So if you can show that, well, no, I've gone through all the steps that I would have gone through if there had been budget and stuff like that, that you actually understand the bigger scope of being a filmmaker instead of just making a film for no money. Yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah. So let's say, so most of the filmmakers do have no money. What would be, let's say they had some limited resources. What would you say is where they should be targeting that money if they do have money, in terms of whether it's equipment or, if, like you said, feeding people, or what would be some things that you think would be a good emphasis for using the resources they do have?
If you've got a little bit of money, feeding people on set goes a long way. If they're hungry, they're angry. So definitely get some money to put it into food, but also take advantage of Dark and their incredible rental rates and get some good sound equipment. If you, at worst case scenario, your phone's got a half decent camera, but it's got a terrible microphone. So if you've got a little bit of money, get some food, but also put in a couple of bucks and rent a mic and some sort of recorder.
That's you.
I'll just say the Ottawa community is fantastic people who are willing to help, volunteer their time, just show a lot of love and appreciation for their time. And I'm sure they will try to help you to the best of their ability, and show your gratitude in many ways. Yeah.
And reaching out, that's sort of that step of reaching out. Like the Ottawa Filmmakers Group is great. Like Dark has been mentioned. I think Emily just in the chat put the link to the Digital Arts Resource Center there. So definitely click on that and reach out, become part of that community. Like it's an amazing community here in Ottawa that people will help out.
And if you join the Facebook groups, if you join some of the Facebook groups, they're fantastic. Like Stephen and I, sometimes we're like, we need a table that we can break. We need this. And everybody's so helpful to like, hey, I know somebody who'd be willing to donate that. Hey, I know a location that you guys can use, or, hey, I have a friend that would be able to help with that kind of stuff. They're really great.
Exactly. Sorry, Mikey.
Big time. First of all, food is number one, obviously, and not pizza. Good food. But other than that, I would say it's definitely helpful to do a script breakdown before you shoot. And that's essentially just going through your script and you highlight every single prop, every single location, every single special type of shot you need. And you're basically finding out all the different areas of your script that you need to prioritize and things you need to bring on your shoot day. And based off your script breakdown, that can give you some clues on, wait a minute, like this is a really set deck heavy film. Maybe we should be allocating a good chunk of the budget to our art, right? Or wait a minute, this film's very sound dependent. We should really focus on this. So I think your script breakdown might give you the clues you need to help with your budget allocation as well.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, it's getting late. It's 7:58. If we can hang, are you guys good for hanging for a few more minutes? Because if people do have questions, if they could type them into the chat. I'm just going to ask though, like, let's say that you are to the point now where you're into post production. Um, Anytime that I've worked in post production, the problem seems to be not knowing when you're done. Like you just keep thinking, oh, I could do more, and you almost over edit.
Yeah, you're never really done. There's always something that you're going to find. There's always something that you're not going to want. There's something that you're going to say, this really doesn't work. Just submit it anyway. That was one of the things where Steven and I think it was the spring Digi Film Festival, which was only 30 days instead of 60. And I was literally almost in tears, not wanting to submit this because something went wrong at the very end. And Steven and I have a tendency of doing exactly what you said. Well, there's always something to do up until the deadline. And sometimes it's just taking too long to render. And you're like, we're going to miss the deadline. And that the Teddy one that we did, something happened in the quality of the video where it was some sort of weird fuzzy to the video. And I really did not want to submit. I was like, this is not my best work. I'm not happy with the quality of this. And the film was good. It's just the quality wasn't very good. And I was like, I cannot submit this. I do not want to submit this. And Steven was like, Ashley, we've put in all the work. You need to submit this. And I was like, all right, you know what? Fine. We'll submit. And we won Spirit of the Festival award with that one and top 5 films of the festival. So even if you think that it's not quite ready, it's not there yet, I still have so much to do, submit it. Just do it.
Definitely. Mikey?
Yeah, you need to know when to walk away. And that's probably the hardest part because we're all our own worst critics, right? And like you're saying, there's always something to adjust or tweak or edit. I was editing the film last year as well. And my strategy was just 3 days before submission. That was my deadline. I'm like, hey, I know the film's due Wednesday, but by Sunday night, it doesn't matter. I am done. And that's what I did. And then I didn't watch the film again until the screening. And that honestly was what I needed to do. Because if not, I would have just kept going down that rabbit hole. So set yourself a soft deadline and stick to it and know when to walk away.
See, you were probably a little luckier in that the film was the shot. So, but were there still things you were trying to tweak sound?
Yeah, a little bit of tweaking, I think, but I would say just believe in yourself. Be confident in what you're doing. Really think through what you're putting together and what you're sharing with others. And I think if you have a positive outlook on what you're doing, then everything's going to be fine. Don't overthink it too much. It becomes worse the more you overthink it.
Yeah.
So simplify. I always tell this, I think, to people I'm working with. I said we're making a very simple film. Just simplify it as much as you can. As soon as it's simple, it'll be easier to shoot. It'll look much better. Yeah. Especially a low budget short film. If you had $100 million, you can do all these different edits. Okay, sure, but I mean, in this case, just do the most simple film you could think of, and I think your audience will appreciate it more, and they'll be more drawn into it.
Yeah, and the number of times when people say, "Oh, I fretted over this continuity was not quite right here," and then you would ask 100 people at the screening that night, "Did you notice this?" And they didn't notice it. Like it's just because you've watched it 100 times.
Did anybody notice the errors in Justice? I don't think so. But me, I was like, "Oh, this is an error." I'm like, but nobody's going to notice anyways, because they're more drawn to other points in the film, and just accept it.
If the story's carrying them forward, details like that people won't even notice. And I will ask that'll be my last question. We do have another question in the chat. Is just maybe you could talk a little bit about the experience of seeing your film up on a big screen with a couple of 100 people reacting to it. How that's different from putting it up on YouTube and only ever seeing it on your computer screen, as opposed to actually having a full screening experience.
It's incredible. It's I think especially the last one that we submitted last year, it really, because we really want to involve the audience in, is she lying? Is she telling the truth? Wait a minute, she's saying something and that's not what I saw happen. And we really wanted to play with the audience with that. And so like when she was citing the glass of Coke and telling the police officer, I I ordered ginger ale, and you see the glass of Coke being slid, we kind of heard people, the couple rows in front of us, kind of like, wait a minute, what? And we're like, yes, that's what we wanted. That's what we wanted. We wanted to like start getting the gears going of people going, wait a minute, that doesn't add up. And then going from when she goes and she kills, we had everybody gasp because they weren't expecting that to happen. And we had people in the rows in front going, oh, what? And we're like, Stephen and I looked at each other. We're like, yes, that's exactly what we wanted. So just being able to see on the big screen and having people, you actually see them react to your film. They're laughing at the spots where you want it to be funny. They're gasping where you want to put a little bit of shock in there. Just having that audience react to your film that's on a big screen, there's no feeling like it.
Yeah. Hassib, how did you feel with your film?
Watching it,
Yeah.
honestly, I thought I made it. Like I really liked my film. As I watched it, I said I really liked it, and I wasn't too sure about how other people felt about my film because I felt like it really needed you to focus while watching it. So I wasn't really observing any feedback. But then when I went outside, people were like, what the hell did you just make? And I was like, and then I realized, okay, maybe I did do something that people appreciated a little bit because it was a bit more of an alternative style of a film.
Exactly. Yeah, it was different than anything we'd ever screened before. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Even the theme, I don't think the theme really existed in Digi60, and I wasn't sure how people would receive it. But anyway, just make the film that you enjoy, I guess.
And Mikey, I guess you would be getting the laughs from the crowd. That must feel great.
Yeah, well, it's an amazing feeling seeing your hard work displayed in front of everyone. And I will say too, when even though our film wasn't inherently a comedy, like there were funny elements, and so there's an added level of pressure, like we were saying about, are those jokes going to land? And you got a little bit of anxiety, like what if no one laughs at this part? We're supposed to laugh here, and believe me, it's very satisfying when they do laugh, and you can tell they enjoyed it. So it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
For me, in a festival, something that has always been an incredible feeling is when you're watching a festival and your film screened on the first night. We saw Justice go up thinking, wow, there's some really good films here. Then we saw Mikey's film, and all the films were in the top 5 thinking there's some really good films showing here. Oh yeah, and I guess I kind of have one in there too. And this thing that we made to kind of stands in with all these films that I really enjoyed watching. It's an incredible feeling from a festival standpoint to know that you're in there with a bunch of awesome filmmakers.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. All right, we do have a question quickly from the chat. It was, what was the biggest obstacle you faced, either during filming, or in post-production? Mikey, we'll start with you.
Like I said earlier, I think logistics and pre-production was probably our biggest hurdle. Like I said, 11 locations, daylight dependent. It was a high risk in terms of making sure everything came together in place. So that was probably the biggest obstacle, was just really making sure we had all of our ducks in a row, that we've planned appropriately, that we can make our day, that we're not going to go over. And so I think the pre-production, just making sure we had everything thought out, was probably the biggest obstacle for us.
Stephen or Ashley?
This whole film, honestly, was an obstacle. But writing the script was a big problem. It took a year and a half to write a film that should have been done in 60 days. At the casting, we wrote this with people in mind, and then people got sick because that's the thing that happens. We had to get new people, finding locations, doing the work of being filmmakers, getting that insurance and those rental contracts and things in place. And then afterwards, realizing we had to re-record some of the sound, relying on the incredible power of AI to clean up some of the bad audio that was in our film. And then getting everything done and completed on time, working with independent artists. I think that putting this film together was a major obstacle, but when I look back on it, I'm amazed that we actually made something. And something that we liked, and that amazingly other people seem to have liked too.
Cool. All right. What was it there? If you had one piece of advice to provide a first-time filmmaker, or first time participant in the festival, and I mean they're already 30 days in. Get that feeling. Okay, they're 30 days in. What piece of advice would you give them if they're starting to feel a little bit of panic?
Don't be afraid to don't be afraid to look stupid. Ask those questions. Ask for help. It's instead, or I should probably say, instead of don't be afraid to look stupid, don't be afraid to learn. If you don't, you're not going to learn if you don't ask questions. You're not going to learn if you don't ask for help. So don't be afraid to learn. Just go ahead, ask people, find people that are knowledgeable in a certain department of what you're looking for help. Ask around. It's just, don't be afraid to ask, because you will get help, and people are more than happy to help, and it'll help you along. Yeah, so don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to ask.
Brilliant. Hassib?
I'd say it depends on what kind of panic. I mean, if you're panicking about your script, maybe that's a good sign. It means that you're taking that time to self-reflect on what you're doing rather than just shooting it, with your blindfolded.
Yeah.
So if you're panicking in terms of like anxiety, like, there's a big network of people that are more than willing to help. I'll help anybody who ever needs any help with their films. So just reach out, and there's always a way to accomplish it. There's always a location that can be changed. Just, stay open-minded, and you're going to be able to shoot the film that you want to.
Exactly. And Mikey?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo Ashley and Hassib there. It's perfect advice. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I mean, even in post-production, I was getting really discouraged about the edit, wasn't sure if I was on the right path. And so I exported a draft and I sent it off to a buddy of mine who's an editor and said, hey, do you mind just giving it a watch and give some feedback, right? It's okay to ask for help and ask for advice. It can really steer you in the right direction. And of course, we're all willing to help, so don't be afraid.
It really is a team sport. That's what you need to realize. Yeah, for sure.
One of the best pieces of advice that I was ever given was on my very first film for a 48-hour film challenge. They brought in somebody with a pep talk who said that the best films in the world are the ones that get made.
Yeah.
So whatever you have now, where that script is, if you're panicking because it's not perfect, it's not going to be perfect. If you make a film, Digi will screen it. And the fact that your film is being screened makes it 100% better than all of the films that haven't been screened and haven't been completed.
Exactly. Yeah. And your next film is always going to be, almost always, a little better. But it can't get better if you don't make that first one. Yeah, exactly. And that's so much of what Digi60 is about, is getting people to make those first films, those first 2 or 3 films, get them to the point where they feel that confidence and ability, and the ability to do it. Yeah.
And what's great about Digi is that you can actually get feedback. So even and ask for the feedback. Again, don't be afraid to ask for the feedback. Sometimes it's a little rough. Sometimes it's great, but you'll learn from it. So if you get feedback saying, I didn't understand this concept, or I didn't understand why this happened in the movie, then you can go and relook at it and go, okay, how can I make that better the next time? Like, how can I take that, learn from it, and make sure that doesn't happen again?
Yeah,
so you can actually ask for feedback from the judges. So the judges will look at everything, and you can say, I'd love to have, because they'll put feedback on every film that's being screened, and you can actually say, hey, I'd love to get that feedback, and they'll send you an email with all the feedback. Again, sometimes it was like, we had some great feedbacks, and we're like, yeah, and then we had one judge that was like, I didn't understand how you guys like fit that in, and we're like, okay, so what did we miss? Like, did other people in the audience not get it? And how can we make sure that doesn't happen next time? And it'll allow you to grow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's so great. Like, and our judges put in so much time doing the judging. Again, and they're they don't know you. It's not like we're telling them, oh, who's great is that. Like, they basically get these films, watch them, and give their comments. They put in a lot of time typing out the comments for the films. So it's so great when the filmmakers actually ask for that feedback. But like you say, you need to be ready for a little honesty sometimes. But it's always in terms of helping you grow as a filmmaker.
Kevin, is Max McGuire running the filmmaker feedback session this time?
I would. We don't know yet. I would be very surprised if he's not.
If that is available to you as a filmmaker, do it. That was a life-changing thing for me as a director. It only takes a few people, but sign up early if that's available to you.
we will definitely do, or I shouldn't say definitely, we will almost 100% definitely do a workshop that does involve feedback like that. Max has been great. The only thing would be is if he just isn't available. But for sure that group has always been great, where we sit down with, I think we usually have about 5 filmmakers that come in, and he spends about 20 minutes with each filmmaker talking specifically about their films, and everyone else gets to talk about them too. And it's a really great experience, a great part of the weekend. So yeah, if you can participate in that, that's excellent. We're going to see if anyone wants to ask a question live. So this would require you to turn on a camera and your microphone and pop on the screen and ask a question. If anyone is feeling brave enough to do that. And while we're waiting, I will ask if your films are available online for people to screen. I know, Hassib, yours is, whether that's like a public link you want to put out. Steven,
available.
Sorry?
Yeah, I'll share it with everybody.
Yeah,
I can put it in.
Stephen and Ashley, I know yours is online. It was available.
It's on YouTube. Yep.
Mikey, I know yours wasn't, and there's probably some CBC reasons why it's not. So
I think it's still on CBC Gem as a part of the Ottawa Shorts episode. So I can find the link and pass it along as well.
Brilliant. That would be great.
Can we ask questions of each other if nobody's asking us questions?
No, Stephen, you're not allowed to do that. Okay. Go ahead, Stephen.
Hassib, I'm wondering for you, what prompted you to go for the one-shot look? And did you know how hard that was going to be before you started doing it?
I thought it was going to be easy. But John was like, he seemed so anxious about it. I said, no, just take a camera and move around. Maybe that's part of my thought process. But the one shot, I wanted to do one shot because I wanted to show how sometimes life can change within a matter of minutes. And sometimes things are out of your control. And I think it kind of like added to the film and what I was trying to accomplish. And it was the best way of accomplishing that. And so that's basically why I did it that way. And I also thought it was, interesting and different, and the audience would appreciate it. Getting in and out of the car was the biggest challenge, but we kind of figured out an interesting way to do that. I don't know if some of you watched it, but I think the one take I recommend, if you don't like editing too, it's try the one take. You can even do a fixed one take, but just make sure that there's enough things happening. I was watching recently again, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and there's a lot of these especially when they're sitting on the beach, it's maybe like a 10-minute very captivating conversation and chemistry and energy that they both have, and so you can always do a one take, but make sure whatever's in the frame is really drawing us in to what is happening. And if you don't like editing and maybe you're tight on the Digi60 schedule, try something like that. Go for it.
Yeah, and the great thing about one shot is when it's working, you don't notice it until you're about 5 minutes in, and then you go, wait a minute, there hasn't been an edit yet, has there? As opposed to sometimes where it's like, oh, I know what they're doing. And in your film, I would say I was 3/4 of the way through before I realized, wait a minute, there hasn't been an edit, because you changed angles, you changed scenes, you got into the car, there were changes to scenes within the shot. You made it so dynamic all the way through that you didn't notice that there weren't edits, because the actual story was a bunch of edits almost with it. It was just, it bugs me how inexperienced you are and how good that is now. I wish you were going to tell me, this is my 20th film. All my actors are ACTRA. It's not like that, but yeah, it was genius for starting.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Does anyone else have any questions for anyone else? Oh, I will show. Yeah, so the links to the films are now up in the chat there. So Hassib's film is up there first. Stephen and Ashley's film second, and then the link to the CBC episode of on CBC Gem there is there as well. So you can see all three, and I highly recommend watching these. Like, I watched them last year, and then when we were going to do this, I watched them again this week. And this week I was just like, oh, these are good. Like, these are so good. It's so fun to watch. And well, and not always fun, but just good. Like, just good. Where you're just like, oh, this is what Digi60 was supposed to be. And thank you all for making those films.
On that note, I'm just curious to see what some of the Ashley, Stephen, and Mikey might be working on right now, either for Digi60 or some other projects that you guys are thinking about.
That's a great question. One of the things that we're working on right now is a film that we shot back when we were in school and didn't like. We cut so many corners. We rushed the production. We did a one-day shoot when we never should have. But I haven't been able to get that story out of my head. And it's a story that I really want to tell, and I really want to tell properly. And we've realized that it's not the 9-minute film we thought it was. It's something a whole lot bigger than that. So looking into how do we grow beyond the 7 to 9 minute window of short films. And like Kevin was saying, we know how to make a film for no money, but what does it take to make a film that could be invested and could turn into something a little bit more, and a chance to go back and fix the mistakes, which you don't often get.
What are you working on, Mikey?
Well, we got a studio fashion shoot coming up later this month. That'll be pretty sweet. So we're just in pre-production for that. And then I'm bugging Nikki, every few months saying, hey, open up the laptop. We got to work on something else. We had so much fun with Impulse Control. Let's do it again. So I'm bugging her every day. So hopefully maybe next year's Digi60. Who knows?
Awesome. Right now you're just living off royalties from it, right?
Yeah, I mean, just cruising along,
So that means Mikey. Yeah, so Mikey, you're available to help me with my film this year.
I mean, of course, man. I'm happy to help anyone. If you have any questions, whatever you need, I'm one message away.
Yes. So I'm shooting a film for Digi60, and I'm probably gonna do 2 edits. I'm gonna do maybe a longer one and one for Digi60 format.
Excellent.
But it's a topic I don't think anybody's ever really touched on, and it's not a one take. But I think it's going to be a little bit captivating. I think audiences will really like it.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Awesome.
Good stuff. Excellent. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up there. It's 20 minutes past what we asked you to be here for. So thank you very much to all of you for your time, your answers, just some great insight. And like I say, it's just been so, these are the types of films that make us want to do this every year. Like and last year I thought was probably our best year ever. Like there were just so many really good films. And I really think this community is coming together and becoming a really, really talented group. And I love to hear that you guys are like, if people want to reach out and help to cooperate with their films, that's exactly what Digi60 has been trying to do, especially since Emily has taken the reins of making this much more of a community, hearing new stories from new voices. It's just been the last 4 or 5 years have just been brilliant. And thank you very much for all your efforts. And
huge thank you.
Each of you thank Emily separately.
That's it. Thank you, Emily, as I was going to say, exactly. And the whole Digi60 team, so supportive, so awesome. They're a quick email away if you have any questions. They're incredible. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo that too. That this is something that I needed when I was younger, and I'm glad I found now. But this is, if you're looking to start in filmmaking, this is really where you should be doing it. Kevin, Emily, and the whole team, you have built something absolutely incredible here. And for me, and I know I don't want to speak for Ashley, but for me, this has definitely been life-changing. And the fact that this exists is an incredible thing.
Absolutely. You guys have given an avenue to people who never thought that they could be able to experience this. It's allowed us to network with a whole bunch of people that we've gotten to learn from, to grow with, to bounce ideas off, to ask for help. Like it's such a great community, and a lot of that you guys have helped create. So we appreciate that so much.
Yeah, I think the Digi60 team is phenomenal. Just great people overall, very helpful. Emily, you, Derek, Mesa is amazing. I mean, yeah, it's they really accept all of us, and it's beautiful. And they hold all these events for us to connect with others, especially in a time where people are not connecting so much. So it's really beautiful.
Great. Great. Well, I'm glad I was able to milk out some praise for us here there. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to thank everyone for coming. Oh, thank you very much for coming. And a reminder that the deadline for filmmakers, November 30th, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Make sure you start downloading long before that.
Yeah, guys, make the deadline to the 29th, okay? Set in your head, it's November 29th.
Exactly. And double check your filmmaker checklist. It's not just downloading the film that you have to do. There's some stuff you got to do as a filmmaker when you're submitting. So make sure you go through the checklist and that you've submitted everything you're supposed to there. Reach out at info@digi60.org. It's in the chat there. Emily just put in the chat, but it's info@digi60.org. Fairly easy to remember. If you have any questions about the theme, the submission process, and we'll be sending out the submission link in 2 weeks. So I challenge you to have your film ready even before you're allowed to submit it. That's my challenge to you. But take your time. Take your time. Take the time you need until the 29th, as Ashley said, at 7 p.m.
Yeah. And if I can suggest, read what you need to submit with the film before you film. If you haven't filmed yet, definitely go through what you need to submit, because sometimes you need some stuff that you're doing on set. So like behind the scenes, pictures and stuff like that. So make sure you go through that list before you film if you haven't filmed yet.
Brilliant.
And watch your film before you submit. We made that mistake once. Take the time to watch it.
And Emily's reminding me that we are expecting captions too. All right, so the captioning will be required. Check the filmmaker's checklist, and it will tell you about that as well. Okay. So best of luck to you. We will see you on December 1st for the Digi60 media launch. Very exciting. There'll be details about that coming. And then the December 15th to 17th is the 2023 festival. So the 15th and 16th will be screenings. 16th and 17th, lots of workshops. So check out the Digi60 website, and we'll keep updating you on the things that are going to go on that weekend. It's just a weekend we look forward to every year. It's our Christmas, so we will be putting up lots of details about what's going to be happening. So use Digi60, use it to become the filmmaker you could become. All right. Is there anything else from anybody? All right. If not, I'm closing it with pineapple. And that is it for tonight. All right. Thank you very much again. Thanks to Emily and all the Digi60 folks for organizing this. Jake for putting this together as well. And we will see you all in 1 month. And good luck.